Something is happening in America's housing market that feels backwards. For years, renters were trapped. Every lease renewal felt like a punishment, and the message was always the same: pay more or leave. But now, in some of the fastest-growing cities in the country, landlords are doing the unthinkable. They're begging. Not with better service, not with lower rent, but with free rent. In one major U.S. metro, more than half of rental listings are offering at least 1 month free. Some offer 2 months. Some even offer more than 3. And that raises a disturbing question. If housing is still unaffordable, why are landlords suddenly giving it away? Because free rent isn't generosity. It's a warning signal. It means someone built too much too fast. It means demand didn't arrive the way the forecasts promised. It means behind the glossy rooftop pools and co-working lounges, there are empty units and growing pressure. And what happens next could reshape the housing map of America, especially in 2026 and beyond. To understand the return of free rent, you have to understand what the Sun Belt became during the pandemic. Between 2020 and 2022, America ran a national experiment. Millions of workers discovered remote work, and suddenly they weren't tied to expensive coastal metros anymore. So they moved, from places like California and the Northeast to warm, fast-growing markets: Arizona, Texas, Florida, the Carolinas, Colorado. Developers saw it as a new gold rush, and they did what developers always do when they smell opportunity. They built. And built, and built. Especially luxury apartments, the kind with designer finishes, smart locks, rooftop decks, fitness centers, and co-working floors. And for a while, it looked like the bet was perfect, until something changed. Demand slowed. Some remote workers returned to offices, migration cooled, and inflation squeezed households from every angle. The result? A new kind of housing problem. Not a shortage, a glut. At the same time, the U.S. hit near a 40-year high in multifamily completions, meaning a wave of apartments was still arriving even as momentum weakened. That's how you get a market where renters are stressed, but landlords still can't fill units. Because it's not housing that's oversupplied. It's a specific kind of housing, newer, high-end rentals, clustered heavily in certain cities. By late 2025, Phoenix rents dropped sharply compared to the national trend. The WSJ reports Phoenix rents fell about 4% annually by the end of 2025 versus about 1.3% nationally. But the bigger shock is what landlords are doing to avoid cutting headline prices. According to the WSJ, about 54% of Phoenix rental listings offer at least 1 month free, the highest share in the country. And it's not just 1 month. Some are offering up to 3.5 months free. Why not just lower the rent? Because landlords don't want to destroy the official rental value of the property. A rent cut becomes permanent in perception. It changes what lenders believe the building is worth. It hits refinancing. But a concession is temporary. It's a discount that doesn't show up the same way in the public price record. So you'll see this strange game. Rent stays high on paper, but renters pay less in reality. And landlords add sweeteners, gift cards, moving trucks, sports ticket discounts. This is not a strong market. This is a market trying to hide weakness. Phoenix isn't alone. The WSJ points to Denver and Charlotte as other oversupplied markets. In both, more than half of rental properties also offer at least 1 month free. Different cities, same pattern. Rapid pandemic-era building, luxury-heavy supply, demand not matching the hype, landlords competing building versus building. And what does that competition look like? Not price cuts, perks. Because again, price cuts look like collapse, perks look like marketing. Now contrast that with places like New York, Los Angeles. The WSJ describes those as still housing-scarce coastal markets, where renters fight for listings and concessions are far rarer. So the U.S. rental market is splitting into 2 Americas. America A, oversupplied luxury metros offering free rent. America B, high-demand metros where people still compete like it's 2019. And when a country splits like that, people follow the incentives, which brings us to the deeper implications. Free rent sounds like good news, but it creates a hidden chain reaction. Implication 1. The rent is still high, just disguised. Concessions lower effective rent, but they don't reset the market the way true price drops do. That means the next renewal can snap back hard, so renters get trained into false security. I can afford this place, until the deal disappears. Implication 2. Lower income renters don't get these deals. The WSJ makes something clear. These concessions mostly hit new, glitzy, high-end properties. In older, more affordable stock, demand stays strong, and concessions are rare. So the people who need relief most, they don't get it. This is a luxury market correction, not an affordability solution. Implication 3. The vacancy pressure will move like a wave. Oversupply doesn't sit still, it spreads outward. First, high-end units struggle. Then they start competing down market. Then mid-tier landlords adjust. Then older buildings feel the pull. But that only happens if the supply is persistent. And right now, supply is changing because developers are slowing down. The WSJ reports construction is being pulled back sharply, with landlords betting the surplus gets absorbed in 12 to 18 months. Which leads to the next section. What happens after the free rent ends? Here's the part most renters won't see coming. The free rent era won't last because it's too generous. It won't last because it's too dangerous for landlords. Once the supply wave is absorbed, pricing power flips, and the flip can be brutal because landlords remember the pandemic lesson. Renters will pay, and if they can't, someone else will. So in 2026 plus, the big risk is a two-speed rental whiplash. Risk 1. Renewal shock. Renters who moved in on concessions face renewal without them. That affordable apartment suddenly becomes unaffordable overnight. Risk 2. A new shortage cycle. If construction is paused too long, especially after a near 40-year supply boom, markets can tighten rapidly. That's how America works. Overbuild, pull back, undersupply, spike again. Risk 3. Investors and debt pressure. A lot of these luxury projects rely on financial assumptions, stable occupancy, projected rent growth, refinancing windows. If concessions become permanent in practice, some properties may look occupied but under-earning. That creates quiet stress, especially if interest rates stay high and refinancing becomes painful. This is where you start seeing distress that doesn't make headlines immediately. Delayed maintenance, staffing cuts, service declines, sudden policy changes, aggressive renewal terms. Because when buildings are under pressure, the tenant experience is the first thing to degrade. So yes, if you're a renter in parts of the Sunbelt, this moment can feel like a rare win. Free rent, perks, leverage. But don't mistake leverage for stability, because free rent isn't proof the market is healthy. It's proof someone made a massive bet, and now they're trying to outrun the consequences without admitting the price was wrong. And if history holds, what comes after the giveaway phase is usually the correction phase. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet changes that slowly tighten the noose. So when you hear the words 1 month free in 2026, listen carefully. Sometimes the biggest warnings arrive disguised as discounts.